20. Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, Sports Talk Media Network across the great state of South Carolina. And we're so happy to be with you on this Wednesday night. Happy that you are with us. We're going to get to phone calls very soon. For those of you who could not get through last night, I apologize. That's here. When we can't get the phone calls, it's usually because Chris and Pat are talking too much. I apologize on their behalf, and we'll do what we can to get to your phone calls tonight. 888-898-2525. South Carolina, I say that because Chris is not on yet to defend himself, and Pat's busy, so he can't defend himself. So I can say that. Phone number, 888-898-2525. That is the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Into Sports Talk tonight. Great show for you. Frank Martin, live at 7:05. First time we will have talked to the former Gamecock basketball coach since our conversation with him, like the day of or the day after he was fired at South Carolina. And, of course, he put in his first season at UMass this past season. So we'll catch up with him more or less about his thoughts on the world of college sports and the world of college basketball. I think that's what we'll be interested in hearing about. Maybe not so much about what's going on at UMass. We'll touch on that. But how does he feel about the direction of everything, and where are we going to be in 10 years when it comes to college basketball, college football, etc.? So we got that for you. Dabo Swinney's back in the USA. You know, he went down to South Africa and was on a safari or something down there. He looked at lions and tigers and bears and other things. Went down with a bunch of Clemson people and returned and was on the Clemson IPTAY Prowl and Growl tour last night in Greenville. And he spoke with some media there. We'll bring you about 3 or 4 minutes of that, where he's talking about changing the offensive coordinator's job and having Garrett Riley on board in the transition to a new offensive coordinator. That was about the only football they talked about, that subject. They talked about his trip to South Africa. They talked about what it means to be on the Growl and Prowl tour. And then they talked a little football. We'll bring you the football part because really that's all we care about is the football part. We got recruiting for you. Clemson started summer camps today. South Carolina will be doing likewise this week. Official visits coming up this weekend, so we got a lot to cover there. And we'll update afternoon baseball. The Braves are playing out in Oakland this afternoon, and they get the win over the A's 4-2. They take 1 of 3 from the worst team maybe in the history of baseball, at least at this point. The A's are 12-46. The Braves, you know, for all I hear from Braves fans, they're only 10 games over 500, you snooty people. So it's not like you're burning it up now. Braves are 4-2 winners today over the A's. We'll update other baseball for you here in a little bit and touch on some other news, including the SEC meetings where they're talking about a lot of things, whether to go to 9 conference games or stay at 8, trying to come up with a plan. More writing today from Sports Illustrated's folks. They're all over it. I got to give them credit. They have been all over the story about NIL and what's happening in various states and what the SEC is going to try to do. And again, we get more hand-wringing from officials talking on the record and off the record about this topic, about where things are and where it's headed with college athletics. And I think they've pretty much reached the conclusion that things are not going back to where they were. Things are going to continue to move forward in a pay-for-play scenario. And they've just got to get over the hump, Chris and Pat, as I have. And maybe you guys have. I don't know. You can speak for yourselves. But they just got to get over the hump of admitting what it is. NIL is a farce. It's a cover. It's a facade. It's just another way that college sports has always twisted things. You're not an athlete. You're a student athlete. You're not a professional. You're on scholarship. You're an amateur. I mean, it's just how they've always tried to smokescreen everything. NIL is just a cover for pay for play, and it's a cover that allows the colleges to continue to maintain a position for now that we're not paying the players. It allows Dabo Swinney and those like him to say, we're not paying the players. We've got NIL, and that's philanthropic, and that's a charity, and the supporters are paying the players, not us. That's not how I see it. I see it as what it is. It's pay for play. It's used in recruiting. It's buying players. It's enticing players to come to your school out of high school and to stay at your school if you're already in a program, or to be lured somewhere else. It's pure out and out the business world, Chris. It's just like, I would hate it if Fox Radio came after you and threw a big number on the table. I'd have to fight it. We'd have to fight it, But I would understand if you were to walk away for $2 or $3 million more than what you're making here.
Well, I appreciate that, and it would take a substantial raise to supplant what I'm making with Sports Talk. But
Yes.
No, first off, if Dabo Swinney saw bears in Africa, I do want to talk with him about that, because bears are not indigenous to the continent of Africa.
You see,
So
you're a very
that would have been a
smart
story.
You're a very
story.
But when you talk about being out in the woods, don't you talk about lions and tigers and bears? I was kind of caught up in the Wizard of Oz, lions and tigers and bears. Okay,
yes,
that's kind of where I was on
I
that.
Absolutely loved it. But no, and I've gotten to a point, I was like you initially, that I thought NIL would be the death knell for college athletics. I've almost gotten to the point now, I don't care. If they get paid, great. I don't mind whoever pays them. Let them go make as much money as possible, because the coaches are, and that's fine. To me, the bigger concern, and the one they've got to get handled, is the transfer portal. The transfer portal, to me, is going to ruin college athletics long before paying athletes is going to, in my mind. Mm-hmm. Because when you've got guys that have played at 4 different schools in 3 years, it's not a model that's sustainable. Heard Gary Gilmore talk about that the other night, how it's a situation where how many baseball coaches are sitting there at the end of the season thinking, all right, I've got a catcher who's pretty good, but he said he's coming back to my program. Do I trust him? Do I believe him when he goes off to play summer collegiate baseball that he may not be seen by some other school and won't go transfer there? Do I need to keep 6 catchers on the roster? It's gotten to a point that it's an unsustainable model. I think NIL will survive in some form or fashion. I just don't see how the transfer portal in its current makeup can sustain itself and keep college athletics competitive.
Yeah.
I don't
think
see
you're exactly right. That is something they have to address and put some teeth into it. They have got to put some sort of limitations, rules, directions, guardrails in place with some teeth. Again, if we're going to look at it from a pro standpoint, and now you've got a second major coach today was quoted as saying, and we're talking about Mac Brown, he said, let's go to the NFL model. So that's Nick Saban, Mac Brown in consecutive days saying, okay, and this is a way for them to kind of wash their hands of it. I'm telling you, these older coaches don't want to deal with NIL. They don't want to deal with the boosters giving the money, because now the boosters are going to want something a little special from the head coach. Hey, coach, I gave $15,000 to the fund to go to your running back there. Can I come over for dinner tonight? They're going to be expecting something in return somewhere down the line. So they want to wash their hands of that as quickly as possible, go to an NFL type of format. Exactly what they would go to and how they would get to it remains to be seen. Some very smart people and some people who are above the fray of the competition between the schools and the competition between the conferences. You'd have to find some people who are out of the business but have experience in the business, who only care about the business. And the business is saving college athletics in a new form that takes care of everybody the right way, but also still provides the thrills that college sports provide. And you got to find people who care about that more than they do about their alma mater or about their conference to come up with some guidelines that everybody can adhere to and agree to.
I'm curious what Mac Brown means by let's go to the NFL model. What exactly is he referencing there? Is he talking about a salary cap that keeps the NFL competitive between 32 teams as opposed to 130 some odd FBS programs? It's you're talking apples and oranges here. You've got 32 teams that have agreed to manage themselves under the same umbrella and by the same rules and basically compete with the same amount of money to create a bigger pile of money. Mm-hmm. Here, you've got 5 Power 5 conferences. You've got 5 or 6 group of 5 leagues. You've got 130 roughly just FBS football schools around the country that are not playing from the same pie. It's not even close. It's like the Dallas Cowboys in the SEC, and then you've got, I don't know, I can't even think of an NFL team that would be the equivalent of the difference in the budgets between what Coastal Carolina, just for example, has versus what South Carolina and Clemson get to play with. How in the world can you go to an NFL model if you want to make that equitable when the baseline is not equitable and it's not close and it never will be?
That's what I'm saying. You got to get a group together that people will listen to. And again, these guys have to be passionate about college athletics. And I'm talking about a mix of football, basketball, and baseball people. And men and women's coaches, men's basketball, women's basketball, softball, put together an elite blue ribbon panel who can rise above individual favoritism for teams and conferences and come up with a global solution to a global problem. When I say global, I'm talking about the world of college athletics. That's what I think they've got to do, and we'll see if we'll get to that. We continue to move down that road slowly. I do think people are tiring of the transfer portal situation, tiring of the NIL situation, and the fact that you have a very small number of players making extraordinary amount of money, and then others who make some money, more, I guess, than they would have been making, but not comparable to what a handful make. And, I mean, that's not good business. Eventually that's going to cause a problem. At least when you get to the NFL, things are negotiated. And we know that the great players, the quarterbacks primarily, and the standout receivers, they get the big contracts, the long contracts, and for exorbitant amount of money. But you have the ability as a starting left tackle, if you're a great one, to also bargain your way and play your way into big money. So, and there's also, of course, the difference when you sign a contract in a professional league, you're going to be with that team. I mean, there's no, I'm leaving this year to go somewhere else. Okay. You can be traded, you can be cut, and you can retire. But you just can't up and leave and go play with a neighbor like you can now in college sports. That indeed has got to be fixed. So those are some of the things being kicked around there at the SEC meetings. No resolution to any of that just yet, but we're keeping a close watch on what's happening there. Pat, what you got?
A couple things. That was a lot of information. But first, back to what Chris said a moment ago with the portal. I've seen a lot of coaches throw this out there, and I can't believe I'm about to agree partially with Hugh Freeze, but he threw this out there yesterday, the new Ole Miss head coach. I'm sorry. Formerly disgraced Ole Miss coach, now Auburn head coach. Mm-hmm. Apologies. Still a bit confusing there.
Difference.
Very fair. My point, though, is he has thrown out what we've talked about on this show at times as well, possible solutions for the portal. What about if you make it so the only way a player can transfer without having to sit out a year is if the coach either leaves or is fired? If there's some kind of coaching change, then you allow a player to potentially have the freedom to go somewhere else. So I feel like there has to be some kind of middle ground here. It's never going to be an and/or type thing. There may have to be some kind of middle ground.
Let me jump in real quick.
Please go ahead. Yes.
I just want to jump in. Sure. Again, if we're going to be pros, then be pros. When an NFL player has his coach fired, he can't just up and leave and go to another team unless he's a free agent.
Sure they can.
How?
Nuke Hopkins has been basically demanding to get released from Arizona, and they did. But we see it. But we see it time and time again now.
You just can't do it on your. You just can't do it on your own. They have to release you. Didn't you just say he got released?
Yes.
Right. So you just can't walk out on your own if you're under contract. You're suggesting a player can hit the transfer portal on his own if a coach changes.
But you're conflating two things, though. Here,
no, I'm not.
A player's not under a contract in college.
No. I'm saying in the new world, he needs to be under a contract. You need to be under contract in college. If you're going to be paid, there should be a contract that ties you to the school.
4 years or 1 year?
Well, that's a good question. I think that's to be negotiated.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And I can tell you right now, if what Mac Brown and Nick Saban are saying, inevitably there would be some kind of collective bargaining agreement, just like we see in professional sports. I can guarantee those players, excuse my language, will put some kind of provision in there. If my head coach leaves, I'm a freshman at XYZ University, the guy who recruited me since I was in 8th, 9th, 10th grade leaves, I want to be able to get out as well. I guarantee there will be some kind of clause in there. Again, I think there needs to be some kind of middle ground here. I'm trying to be careful not to make it to one side or the other. I do feel like there's going to have to be people coming around negotiation table and figuring out some kind of middle ground. And then another point you made about the disparity in what folks are making in NIL, I just pulled up on SpotTrack.com. Again, great resource. They have every single professional franchise in the world. You can look up salary cap, what everybody makes, what their contract details are, and so forth. I pulled up the highest salary cap for the NFL this coming year is the Cleveland Browns. They only have 7 players making double-digit millions of dollars, $10+ million a year in salary, but they have over 30 players making under $1 million. You're telling me there's not disparity in professional sports or every other profession? I'm the producer of this show. I don't make what you make, and that's okay. Like, there's every hierarchy.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
Fair point. But within every job on the planet, there's always CEOs are making more than folks cleaning the bathrooms. And I mean no disrespect for that, but there's always going to be a hierarchy of sorts. So I see no reason why we're just going to assume this will cause friction in locker rooms in college just because the quarterback's making more than the long snapper.
Well, it's just, okay, I understand there's differences, but when we're talking about a quarterback making $1 million a year on NIL and his starting right tackle is making $5,000, that's a pretty huge disparity. When you're talking about a quarterback making $5 million a year, but his starting right tackle is making $2 million a year, it's a disparity, but one I think that's more acceptable and you can live with.
Sure.
Look, I mean, this whole thing with colleges and moving towards the pro formula and the pro model, it will take time to work its way out. But we're going to have to get there sooner than later, I would hope, with some rules, with some guardrails, with some restrictions. You can't have everything, all right? You're a kid, you're coming out of high school. Let's drop the student athlete. Let's drop the student part of it. You know, I was thinking about this today. On3, a major internet sports network, heavy into recruiting, what did they create, guys, in their profiles on players? They created their NIL valuation. They put that on a high school player, trying to estimate what his NIL value will be from his social media following and what he can make at a particular school. That's great. You want to play that kind of game? So be it. I've never seen any of these recruiting networks put an academic evaluation on a player. Gee, is he going to be a B student, an A+ student, a C student? My point is, nobody cares. The families care. The coaches care because they get bonuses if they have certain GPAs. And, of course, the individual student should care. But those of us on the outside, I mean, I'm speaking for me. Maybe you care, Chris. Pat, maybe you care. Maybe some people listening care. But by and large, you buy your tickets to go to the game. You don't give a damn what that player did in class. You don't care what his major is. You want him to score the touchdown, sack the quarterback, and intercept the pass. And if you, if I cut you open and bleed the truth out of you, that's what's going to fall out, and you know it. And let's just admit it. That's been part of the issue here with college sports as we've hit this point. Is just the charade, the facade of being one thing, trying to be one thing when you're actually trying to be something else. It's time to just come clean and be what you are, you know, and you'll be a lot happier in the long run. Everybody will understand what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. And I think everybody will be happy. Look, I was the last one to jump on board with all of this, you know, because I felt like a full ride scholarship for 4 or 5 years, having everything paid for, having all your medical insurance and all this sort of stuff that came with a full ride scholarship. I thought that was a nice trade-off for you playing football, basketball, baseball, whatever, for your favorite college. I thought that was a pretty equal trade, but I've been proven wrong. You know, the Supreme Court says it ain't enough. And that's sort of the bottom line on this whole deal. So more on that coming up. Our phone number, 888-898-2525. We're going to hear from Dabo Sweeney and Frank Martin at 7:05, plus a recruiting update, and we'll update more news notes for you. Let's go ahead and get to the phone calls while Chris and Pat take a break. and we can squeeze in.
I was just going to remind our fans, and we look forward here at Sports Talk this weekend of covering the student athletes in the NCAA baseball regionals. Looking forward to having all that info up on our website at SportsTalkSC.com.
Well, you know what? In parentheses by each player, when you name them, I want to see their GPA. I want you to put their major and their GPA next to their name.
Now, I will say, and you're right, and all fans, you'll pay lip service to the academic side, but I do find it interesting when you see a football player who's a major in microbiology with a double major in, science and arithmetic and wants to be a med student. I think those are kind of cool stories. But for the most part, yeah, you're right.
How many of those have you seen?
Not enough.
I mean, come on.
I couldn't have done it, so I'm not going to criticize those who don't.
I mean, I know. Golly. The great USC women's basketball player from years ago was their all-time Martha Parker. She became a doctor. She is one I can think of off the top of my head, and certainly there are others. And look, nobody says you got to be a lawyer, a doctor. There's plenty of great careers out there that these folks go into once they're finished with their athletic careers, and they're good students, and they're good students. Don't get me wrong. I'm just from where I sit, in my opinion, I just don't believe the majority of fans, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't believe I am. I don't think they give a hoot about the academic side. I'm talking about your hardcore fans. They care about the wins and the losses, and more so on the winning side. Okay, let's get to the phone calls here, guys. 888-898-2525. We go to Hank in Columbia up first tonight here on Sports Talk. Welcome in, Hank. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Corn.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think some of the issues that he's talking about are not relevant because you have a situation where when you're talking about, like, if you're talking about the NFL model, or you're talking about the fact that players, why should players be able to leave when their coaches leave? The problem you're having is that's how you kind of got to that's how you kind of got to this transferring in and out deal, because coaches were coming in and schools were allowing coaches to basically run players off that didn't fit their system. And that was one of your big issues, that you had schools, you'd have coaches come in, and then all of a sudden, it's kind of like, not to say for the least, but it's kind of Deion Sanders. You all don't fit what I like, so you got to go. And nobody asked about commitment of the school to the player and all that other stuff.
Let me say one thing. You use Deion. I think that's outside the realm of normal college coaching approach. And that's this day and age. 10, 15 years ago, no coach would go out publicly and say, I'm running off players. Why? Because that'd be used. There was no transfer portal, and that would be used against you in recruiting. It would hamper you dearly. Every coach recruiting against you would use that in the living room of every family they go into. You would never say that. But now Deion can say it because there is a transfer portal. He can go snag players as quickly as they leave. So it's a different era for that standpoint.
It's a different era, but you remember the wink, all of a sudden, player violation of rules. We would see players, and people would speculate on, this person's been there 2 years and hadn't started yet. And then all of a sudden, those players weren't going back. And before some schools were offering the 4-year scholarships, they were some players not even getting the non-renewal scholarships. So that was one of the things that brought into it. And like your guy yesterday, Corn, came on. He was talking about that the players didn't have anything to do with their worth. Well, the Madden game caused that. Colleges started throwing names on the back of the Madden game, and then it blew up to billions.
Well, I've said all along, the colleges, and thank you, Hank, the colleges have nothing to blame but the greed that they all share. Greed. That's what drove them to this point. Be right back in a moment.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Night cloudy with a low temp of 64 overnight. Tomorrow and Friday, feature mostly cloudy skies and a high temp in the low 80s. Saturday, rain is increased to 40%. The high temperature will be in the low 80s range. Skies look nice for Monday, especially Tuesday of next week. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Parents ask, what's the best way for college? I'm St. My answer is always open up our 529 college savings account. It's starting online, but it's flexible, adapting to college streams. You deduct 100% of your contributions from the South Carolina State Bank. So what are you waiting for? Scholar.com and see way to save.com.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting former Vice President Mike Pence will officially launch his widely expected campaign for the Republican nomination for president in Iowa next week, adding another candidate to the growing GOP field. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is also expected to join the burgeoning fray. The Oklahoma Supreme Court has ruled 2 state laws banning abortion are unconstitutional, but the procedure remains illegal in the state in most cases. In a 6-3 ruling on Wednesday, the High Court said the 2 bans are unconstitutional because they require a medical emergency before a doctor can perform an abortion. The court says this language conflicts with a previous ruling it issued in March. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 134 points, the Nasdaq dropped 82, the S&P 500 lower by 25, oil down to $68.09 a barrel. This is SRN News.
Are you looking for free checking and free savings? Dave Ramsey here, telling you to go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank that's so big they lose the ability to treat you like a human being. At Palmetto Citizens, you're not just a number, you're a member. Join today at any of their 14 locations or at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Hi, this is Bruce from South Carolina Public Charter School District. Join me Monday afternoons at 5:30 as I team up with Cal. Kids First will tackle the issues facing our schools, pointing out positives with our students and teachers. Kids First, Mondays on the point.
Are you getting a tax refund? You've been waiting to get those new hardwood floors in? Or is it vinyl? So hot right now. It's time to call the flooring department. Stretch your dollars here. The flooring department doesn't have a huge multi-million-dollar showroom to pay for. They keep your prices down and your quality up. Look, we all buy from the same manufacturers. So why pay more? Online at theflooringdepartment.com or call 951-3567. That's 951-FLOR.
It's fake. It's always so love to have baby. We also Vegan Animals Week. The Columbia Animal Shelter encourages you to adopt a dog or cat in May. And from the 8th through the 13th, you can adopt $5. Go to petfinder.com and choose. Remember, the weather is great. It's a perfect time to bring that puppy or kitty cat home. Be a hero. $5 adoptions for Columbia Animal Shelter. Visit petfinder.com and to animals.
It's the Cigar Militia, Columbia's premium cigar store. It's that time of year. It's golf weather. Are you going golfing this weekend? Be the guy bringing the sticks, not the guy that borrows. Come by and refill your humidor or just pull off the interstate for a smoke and a cold beverage. Our friendly and knowledgeable staff will help you. You could be a novice or a seasoned veteran. Our friendly staff will walk you through the humidor and answer your questions. We're at 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard next to the Melting Pot.
I'm Jeremy Williams with Services. If you need or new system that meets the requirements, you want someone properly qualified. We stand by our work and charge a price. For a full service fee company satisfaction is necessary. We even offer affordable preventative agreements and financing. Online at sweetpt.com or call us at 801-8143. That's Sweet Services 318143.
Every Friday morning on the point, join me, Chad Jordan, and my co-host Jordan for the Palmetto Real Estate Pro. We'll help you out whether you're looking to buy, sell, or just learn all things real estate every Friday at 100.7.
Just checking the weather forecast from my handy-dandy app on my phone. I have a 168-hour forecast on my app. How can you
What is that, like next
something?
Wednesday? How far out is that?
168 hours. I can look at the weather for this app, which I actually paid for because it looked kind of cool. So it's telling me that on Friday at 1 o'clock, that would be here. I've got it set for Columbia. So, there'll be games at 1 o'clock in Columbia. The first game will be at 1 o'clock. So it's a chance of rain on Friday afternoon, 86 degrees, 26% chance of rain on Friday at 1 o'clock. Move ahead to 7 o'clock, it increases to 48%, but by 8 o'clock, it drops to 5%. So whatever's moving through apparently will be moving through. Then it looks like for the weekend, looks like it's going to be okay, which will be a nice change. Something else they're talking about at the SEC meetings, the fans storming fields and courts after great wins. And now the SEC, of course, is threatening that if you do this the third time, they're going to take a home game away from you, which is a pretty stiff penalty to pay by any home team that would lose millions of dollars if that were to happen. This is something that they're talking about at the SEC meetings as well. They are everything they can to try to rein this in before somebody gets killed, I guess.
I think it's great. You don't like it, then don't get on the field. I've never been arrested for a bank robbery. You know why? Because I've never robbed a bank.
Have you attempted to rob a bank?
No. And that's my point here. Don't go on the field. I don't know why this is so hard. Yeah. And the SEC has to take these extreme measures because we've got a bunch of knuckleheads who can't understand the players are on the field and on the court.
Why is the SEC the only one
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a better question.
The ACC doesn't care about the health of their fans, the Big 12, the Big 10?
Evidently not to the degree the SEC does, anyway.
I mean, do their fans not storm the court just as passionately and out of control as SEC, or maybe SEC fans coming from Tennessee, Alabama, the Deep South, maybe they have a different level of energy when they storm the fields and the courts of America.
Guys, you just hit something on the head there, too, and apologies in advance. I'm going to upset a lot of our fans here in the state of one particular school, a long-standing tradition of meeting at the Paul after the game. I know that's a tradition in Clemson. I enjoyed it as a child and have lots of friends that now love taking their children there to throw a ball around the field, whatever. But mixed with those with good intentions are also those overly served with bad, potentially, intentions who go on the field to cause a ruckus. To your point, Chris, how do you separate one conference from another if this becomes a rule that severe in the SEC where they're willing to take a home game from you? I mean, that is a massive, massive penalty. What do you do about schools that have a tradition of doing it every single game?
Well, I mean, what Clemson does, nobody else, I shouldn't say nobody else. Does anybody allow their fans
I don't know of any other school
on the field right after a game like that at the Power 5 level? I know the lower level schools, they probably have no problem with it. But Power 5 level, does anybody else allow their fans to just walk out on the field like that? I don't know. Pat, you can look that up. In the meantime, let's get back to our phone callers. I promised more calls. As you can tell, Chris and Pat won't let me get to you. We're going to go to Harrison in Monroe, North Carolina. Harrison, good to have you with us. Welcome in.
How you guys doing?
Great, sir. How are you?
Not bad. Like I was the gentleman I spoke with. I'm not really a college sports fan or anything. I'm a truck driver with liver down here, and as far as he said, the gentleman was speaking earlier about taking the education. That's a good trade-off to me. As far as I'm concerned, you get to go around and play sports. You get a good education from it, or whatever you put into it. To me, that's a good trade. And then, just like he said, taking a home game away. What do you mean taking a home game away? It seems it's all about money at this point. It should be about the kids' education because, at the end of the day, isn't that what it's about?
At one point for college athletes, it was supposed to be about that. That was supposed to be part of the plan. You get out of high school, You go to college, you play sports if you're good enough, you get your education.
Right.
And if you're good enough, you can go play pro ball. If not, you go get a job. That's how it's supposed to be. Now, you know what's happening now. Of course, we're becoming more and more like China. No, we're becoming more and more like China because we're taking our kids ages 7, 8, 9. We're putting them in one sport. And you guys jump in if you think I'm wrong here. We're putting them in one sport. We're putting them on travel teams. They're putting all their time into this sport because mommy and daddy see a pro career out of them. That's all they do in their lives is practice this sport. And, for some of them, it will pay off. They will be great athletes in their sport, and they will make it.
What's that percentage? What is that percentage? Because I got those in my family, too, and I got good athletes. No great, not nobody in the books, but, what – at the end of the day, it's our children, for crying out loud.
We don't care anymore, my friend. I hate to be blunt. We don't care anymore. I mean, just look at what's happening.
Nobody else chiming in with you a minute ago, but nobody's chiming in now.
I'm sorry, say one more time?
They were chiming in when you were talking earlier. Nobody's chiming in. It's our children. It's our kids.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's a shame that we've pushed the envelope the way we have. But it's out of control because there's nobody. There's nobody. First of all, there's nobody that runs college athletics today, in my opinion. No AD, no president who has the wherewithal. Maybe they don't have the political support to stand up and say, we're going in the wrong direction. Because years ago they sold their soul to television. So when they started allowing television, in particular ESPN, to run everything, and I mean run everything, where did you think it was going to get to eventually?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, everything's for sale. Everything got a price, right? So now we're putting a price on our kids.
I would not disagree.
And I don't want to speak for Chris, but I'm not jumping in because I can't dispute a thing you said. The only thing I could push back at all, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, is I don't know much about China, so I don't know about the comparison with China.
What you really want to say, though, is what's in it for me.
Hey, thanks for your phone call. Good hearing from you. Keep in touch as you're driving around. What are you delivering?
I delivered. I delivered steel down here in Monroe.
Super. Well, it's good hearing from you. Keep in touch. Thank you.
You guys have a good night.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I once wrote a term paper on China, the history of China. Can you imagine that in high school?
That's I think that'd be interesting to have read, but
no, it wasn't.
I would say comparing anything in the United States to what communist China does might be a touch of a stretch.
1,500 note cards, as I recall. No, I don't think it's a stretch at all because think about this. You grow up in communist China, they determine what you're going to be for your life. You're a gymnast. You show signs of being a gymnast, you're going to be a gymnast. You show signs of being a swimmer, you're going to be a swimmer. That's all you do. You can't tell. Now, the difference is in this country, we are free to decide.
Yeah, last I checked, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue was not telling us that.
No, but your parents are telling you this. Your parents are putting
That's a different issue. Yeah, no, I get your point. Yeah. I get your point on that.
Yeah. All right. So, listen, we're talking about why we are at this crossroads as it pertains to college athletics, and there's a lot of things that have pushed us in this direction. I think it goes back really the very beginning of this to the colleges selling out to the televisions, to the networks. Mm-hmm. They call them their partners. They're not their partners. They're their dictators. They tell you when you're going. Clemson, by the way, we'll go over this. I was shocked. So today they announced some kickoff times. Like South Carolina is going to be kicking off against North Carolina in Charlotte at 8 o'clock, I think it is, on ABC that night, on that Saturday night. Clemson and Duke will be an 8 o'clock kickoff. We got some other kickoff times. Clemson and Charleston Southern will kick off at 2:15 on that Saturday. 2:15. Now, I want to know how they settled on 2:15. It's not on over-the-air television. It's on some kind of a stream. What is 2:15?
I really don't know.
I mean, Clemson
and the Gamecocks, North Carolina, actually 7:30.
7:30. Okay,
not 8 o'clock.
Yeah. So my point is, television tells you when you're going to play. Of course, they're paying you the money, so you're going to have your hands open and say, yes, sir. When do we show up? When do we play? And when you start doing that, of course, you lose control of your product to a large degree. So when they say partners with television, I don't really see it as a partner. I see it as you being pulled by the hair in a lot of different ways. Of course, you're glad to do it because they're paying you on the other end. All right. Thank you for the phone call. 888-898-2525. Let's go to Billy in Charleston. Next with us here on Sports Talk. Billy, welcome in. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Phil?
Terrific. Good to have you with us.
I got a couple of things, and this is something I've always been saying since this NIL thing, everything just got started. If you got these kids coming out of high school wanting to make this big time money, and they haven't even set foot on a professional football field, take the scholarships away and make them pay for their education. Because if you're making that kind of money, you don't deserve a free ride with the education either. That's how I feel about it. And take the scholarships away and give it to someone that's using the scholarship to be able to go to school. They use it to be able to play when they know they're not going to make the money in the first place.
See, that's the whole thing about this NIL deal. You're still coming on scholarship. Your academics and everything are still being paid for, and now you're getting paid over the top from the NIL standpoint. So whatever you happen to make. But the thing about NIL, when it first was created, okay, it was supposed to be about name, image, and likeness. Basically, from what I understood, what your social media following was, you could now make money off of that. If somebody wanted you to attend a party and pay you, or if somebody wanted you to endorse a product on social media or over the air commercial broadcasting, you could get paid for doing that. But now it's just evolved into, what it's becoming, a pure pay for play, just salary, and they try to wrap it around some kind of endorsement or some kind of activity, which we know, as I've read in these stories, people talking about it, a guy might make, $10,000 a month from a car dealership or some other business just to simply put out a couple of tweets a week. Hey, go by and visit so-and-so used car sales. And that counts for his endorsement. I mean, come on, give me a break.
Now, the way this is going, say 20, 30 years from now, are we going to start seeing college football end up being semi-pros where they do end up going that route, and it's not really a athletic status behind it. It's like semi-pro to pro. And then you do the thing like they were saying where instead of having the recruiting classes and what they're ranked, do we start having like mini drafts from recruiting classes too, so they're paying students now?
I think,
Is that where it's going?
Well, not semi-pro, pro, full pro. I mean, total pro. And thank you for the call. Guys, I've got a concept in my head where we do go to some kind of a draft for the college athletes. Now, listen to me here for a second. I know it's far-fetched, and it would take a lot of tinkering and a lot of fine-tuning, and I'm not even sure if it's legal, at this point in time. But I could see a day where the country is divided into regions, okay? And the schools have combines within these regions where players come and perform at these combines. And then at these combines, the schools have their player personnel directors and scouts, and they scout these players. And they kind of determine on their own which ones look like they are the best players, good enough to play at that level. Okay, so you got that in each region of the country, let's say. And then from that, you have a process, I guess you could say. Let's just say you have a process where each of those players, you send those players a card or something, or they are designated as qualified to play at your level. Now, each of those players, they submit a list of, say, 10 schools that they would like to consider playing at, okay? And then those are the 10 schools that they, I guess you can visit, you can talk to, you can negotiate with, what have you. And then you have some sort of a selection process. Instead of a player going and choosing a school, the school chooses you. But you are okay with that because that was one of the schools that you put on the list that you would go to. You see what I'm saying? Think that has any chance?
Only And I say only.
How many laws would that violate of the how many pieces of the Constitution would that violate?
Well, first off, you would obviously have to start paying them as professional athletes, and they would have to have their own union to be able to negotiate contracts and collectively bargain deals. And you would also have to obviously take the academic side of the coin totally out of the mix. Because I know it's not that way anymore, but I mean, when I went to school, I picked the school because I wanted to major in broadcast journalism. Somebody else may pick a school because they wanted to major in engineering and, oh, by the way, also play athletics there. In that regard, where schools are drafting them, you would obviously have to take all that out of the mix.
No, time out. No, time out. On your list of 10 schools, you take into consideration your academic side. And so if school over here doesn't offer the field that you want to study, you don't put them on your list.
Okay.
But if school over here does, you put them on your list. So that accomplishes that.
Some interesting points in there, Phil. I mean, are we ready to totally relinquish the current idea of college athletics the way it is? Because I think at that point you would have the Tigers sponsored by Clemson University. You wouldn't have the Clemson University Tigers. You would not have the USC Gamecocks. You'd have the Gamecocks brought to you by the University of South Carolina. Wouldn't you? I mean, they'd be a subset, totally separate from the university itself.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
If everybody that, and I think we're probably not that far away from that. A lot closer now than I would have ever thought 10 years ago.
Yeah, I could see that happening, and I could see that being doable in the foreseeable future. I'm talking 20 years down the road. All right, got to go to a break here on Sports Talk. We'll come back and continue with your phone calls. Frank Martin coming up. You think he'd agree to anything we're talking about tonight?
I'd love for us to pose some of these to him.
Well, that's the plan. Frank Martin coming up. Comments from Dabo Swinney. You think Dabo Swinney would agree with anything we're talking about tonight?
No.
Not at all.
If he's going to stick to his guns about not paying athletes directly, there's no way he'd agree to any of this.
Not at all. Okay. We'll be back in just a moment.
Score a touchdown with Founders Federal Credit Union. With services like Founders Online and the Founders app, you'll enjoy all the perks of a big bank with local personalized service. Not a member? Joining Founders Federal Credit Union is easy. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Relax with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
Hi, I'm Jim Corbett. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years. There's one thing I've learned about injury cases. It's you need the personal touch. You need the lawyer to get to know you and describe your damages. You don't want a case manager talking to an insurance company, then talking to you, and then talking to maybe to a lawyer with limited experience at the last minute to try to settle a case. I talk to you. I find out what your case is about. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com for your injury cases.
Major Billy Downer here from the Department of Natural Resources, and DNR is excited to announce the implementation of Go Outdoors SC, a new online licensing and boat titling system that you can access right from your phone. Through this new system, customers can purchase their hunting and fishing licenses, renew their boats, apply for lottery hunt opportunities, and complete electronic harvest reporting requirements. For more information, visit Go Outdoors SC at your local app store.
Have you turned on the fun? Try Cash Pop from the South Carolina Education Lottery. Pick one number from 1 to 15, win up to $2,500, or play all 15 numbers, and you're guaranteed to win. Play twice a day to double your fun. It really is that easy. Visit sceducationlottery.com to get the details. Cash Pop. It's the light of the party.
If you're looking to stay hydrated this summer, turn toward a southern favorite, sweet South Carolina watermelons. One slice is equivalent to a glass of water and is just as effective as sports drinks for hydration. If you don't believe us, you can ask the Palmetto State's top football teams. The SC Watermelon Association will be serving up slices after summer practice to keep our teams fueled and hydrated. Visit scwatermelon.org for all the details and look for ripe South Carolina watermelons in your hometown.
Yeah, you know what it is.
This note from the SEC meetings from Brandon Marcello talking about the renewal of Texas A&M in Texas, and will it be played in College Station instead of Austin? The A&M AD thinks it'll be played in College Station. Greg Sankey, the commissioner, told the media they're going to have to wait until the schedule is released to find out. So working the back channels in the dark there over that. We'll see what happens. That'll be huge, of course, having A&M in Texas playing once again. Phone number 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. And since 2002, more than $572 million in lottery proceeds have been used to fund Palmetto Fellows scholarships for the state's college-bound students. You can learn more about the lottery's impact at sceducationlottery.com/educationwins. Playing for fun is a win for education. Get back to your phone calls here on Sports Talk as we head next to Ron in Greenville. Ron, welcome in. Hope you're doing well tonight.
Phil, I'm doing great. Hope you are.
Yes, sir.
Gamecock Larry, what's happened to him?
He's doing fine. In fact, he called us Monday night, and he was all full of himself, full of his Gamecocks, feeling like the Gamecocks are going to get to Omaha and probably step on Clemson on the way. So he's feeling good. He's feeling good.
Well, that's good that he still can come on the radio and talk a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I think no college participant should get paid to play. I think that. But if they do, how about this? Let's say football. Each player gets $300 a month. So August, September, October, November, that's $1,200 a year. 4 times 12 is what? $4,800. I mean, if they're playing football, they don't have time to go out and party and everything. But $5,000 would be good money for them to either save or to live on. And if they transfer, I think it should be cut to $150 a month.
Well, here's the thing, and thank you, Ron. In fact, Pat just told me Larry called earlier, but wasn't patient enough to wait. So Larry's getting impatient in his young days. How are you going to – the Supreme Court says you can't do that. I don't think there's a limit. You can't say you're limited to this amount. Basically, they're saying they can make as much as they can go out and make through whatever channels they can make this money, through the collective,
free market,
social media. Yeah, it's free market. So you can't say, well, you're limited to this, you're limited to that under the current system. Now, if the NCAA or whoever's running college sports is able to go to Congress and get one of those, what's it called, that the NFL and Major League Baseball have, the protection, what's it called? Come on, fellas, you're smarter than me. Tell me.
No idea.
There's that exemption that those leagues have that allows them to limit what they pay players. It's a
salary cap?
Well, no. Well, salary cap is part. What's it called? Anyway, we'll come up with it in a minute. None of us are smart enough to think of it, but it was on the tip of my tongue. They would have to be granted that.
Well, you're not talking about their antitrust.
Antitrust. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, antitrust. That's right. They have to be granted an antitrust exemption, right? So that they can put a salary cap. I mean, look, if they didn't have an antitrust exemption, then they would be violating everything by having a salary cap. Like, I mean, we don't work under salary caps. We work under what somebody's willing to pay us. That's not a salary cap. The pro leagues have enforced salary caps that it's set up in a way, of course, that is to promote competition between the teams and level the playing field to give everybody a chance, which obviously it doesn't work across the leagues because you got some really bad teams. But that's personnel decisions being made there. Anyway, we'll hit the break. We'll pick back up on this after the top of the hour. Frank Martin coming up.
Someone will be right with you. The Point.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, and fireplaces. Spring sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. A vote on a budget that would also raise the debt ceiling is expected this evening. A Republican presidential contender is among those opposing the debt limit deal struck between his party and the White House. Bob Agnew reports.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott says he's against the deal because it leaves open the possibility President Biden will unilaterally increase spending. A provision in the agreement hammered out between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the White House allows the president's director of the Office of Management and Budget to waive the agreed-upon spending limits for almost any reason. Senator Scott says he doesn't trust Biden to have what he calls an open checkbook, no limit on the credit card until the end of his term. Bob Agnew reporting.
Virginia's Glenn Youngkin is joining the list of Republican governors sending soldiers or other state law enforcement officers to the U.S. border with Mexico. Correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
Youngkin announced he's responding to a request from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. The executive order directs the deployment of 100 Virginia National Guard soldiers and 21 support personnel to the southern border. Youngkin says leadership solutions at the federal level are falling short, leaving states to fill in the void. Virginia Democrats are criticizing the move as an abuse of state resources. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has named John Scott to temporarily serve as that state's Attorney General. The appointment Wednesday comes after the GOP-controlled Texas House of Representatives voted to impeach Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton over allegations of misconduct and crimes. Paxton awaits a Senate trial. Former Vice President Mike Pence will officially launch his widely expected campaign for the Republican nomination for president in Iowa next week, adding another candidate to the growing GOP field. More on these stories at townhall.com.
It's Prager here. Sue and I mean it when we say dogs are part of our family, and there's nothing like their loyal companionship. So we provide them with Rough Greens, RUFF, because we want them to feel healthy and be with us as long as possible. I know Charlie Kirk feels the same way.
The Pragers and I couldn't agree more. I rely on my trusted furry friend, Mr. Briggs, who's an absolute machine, and he relies on me to provide what's best for him. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black has packed Rough Greens, not a dog food, but a supplement full of vitamins, minerals, digestive enzymes, and omega oils that Mr. Briggs absolutely needs and loves. Trying Rough Greens for your dog just makes sense.
Greetings, Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here. I'm honored that the Pragers and Charlie trust their dog's health to Rough Green. I'm so confident that Rough Green can help your dog too that I'm offering you a free Jumpstart trial bag. Just cover the shipping. Yes, dog food is dead food, but it doesn't have to be. Go to ruffgreens.com.
Should he win the White House again, former President Trump is promising to roll back a policy that he calls a magnet for illegal immigration.
That policy is birthright citizenship. Mr. Trump says he'll go about doing away with it on day one of his second term. The former president promises an executive order making clear to federal agencies that going forward, the future children of illegal aliens will not receive automatic U.S. citizenship. Mr. Trump made the announcement in a video posted to Breitbart. Rich Thomason reporting.
U.S. job openings rose unexpectedly in April, a sign the American labor market remains surprisingly resilient as the Federal Reserve pushes interest rates higher to combat inflation. Employers posted 10.1 million job openings last month, up from 9.7 in March. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy with a low temp of 64 overnight. Tomorrow and Friday will feature mostly cloudy skies and a high temp in the low 80s. Saturday, our is increased to 40%. The high temperature through the weekend will remain in the low 80s range. Skies look nicer for Monday and especially Tuesday of next week. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, and fireplaces. Spring Sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
Please press button now. I said to genius.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Okay, back with you. Hour number 2, Sports Talk Media Network. Phil Kornblut, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel from the capital city of South Carolina. Used to be the home of one Frank Martin, now makes his home up in Massachusetts, which is kind of a sad place these days after what happened to our Celtics the other night. Let's welcome in the former head coach of the Gamecocks men's basketball team, Frank Martin. Been a little over a year since the last time we talked to him on Sports Talk. It's great to have him back with us. Thought it'd be a good idea to catch up with him, get his thoughts on how things are going for him in Massachusetts and his thoughts about the college scene overall. Coach, first of all, great to have you back on Sports Talk. Thanks for taking the time out. How are you, sir?
Phil, it's been a while. I mean, my God, I'm doing great, man. I'm just trying to. I hadn't heard from my guy Phil. I thought something was wrong. I thought maybe I pissed you off or something on my way out.
No, sir. Actually, we could not decide on who the starting left tackle for the Gamecocks will be this coming season. So, thought you might be the one to tackle that, huh?
Oh boy, you got to admit, Phil, that's going to be a good one for a long time.
That's going to be.
Sit there and talk to you about the 9-string left tackle, and you guys, you would absolutely love that. It's no, man, it's things are going great. It's interesting moment that we're in college sports right now. I'm not saying interesting in a negative way. It's just brand new. So we're all trying to figure it out, but I'm doing great. I'm excited. I'm in a good space right now. We got fairly new roster, and it's kind of par for the course with most people around the country in men's basketball. So but I don't know. I feel my health. Most important part of all this, Phil, is after a 2.5-3 year run where just I battled some health stuff. I'm as healthy as I've been in a long time. So I've got a lot of juice and a lot of enthusiasm and feel really good about where I'm at.
Well, that's great news. That's fantastic. We're happy to hear that for you because we know everybody that followed South Carolina followed you, know that you went through the ringer there for a couple of years. So what about your first season with UMass? As you reflect on that, what'd you take away from it? Where are you going from here?
Phil, it was an interesting season. It was the second winningest season in the history of the school for a first-year coach. So that's the PR number that makes it sound like really good. Well, we went down to Myrtle Beach and won a tournament down there where we had some really good wins. We going into conference play, we had 6 wins away from home, and which is a lot for non-conference play. But then we dealt with the injury bug, and unfortunately, in year one, as we were all trying to get to know each other, we got banged up really bad. I don't know, Phil. I don't know if you remember. I used to talk about that cloud that kind of hung over Columbia over there.
Yep.
I think it made its way up to Amherst, Mass this year, and we dealt with like injuries, and our starting point guard went down, the backup went down, my best player went down. Right in the middle of conference play, and then we just kind of limped to the finish line, and we lost confidence, and just didn't play well coming down the stretch, and which was unfortunate. But it's part of the year one experience. But like I said, man, we return our leading scorer, we return our starting point guard, we return a guy that played big time minutes for us. We return Wildens Lebec, our starting center. And then we've added a bunch of parts, and away we go, man, and let's see what happens.
Wildens, what was his year like for you and some of the other guys that came with you from South Carolina or rejoined you from somewhere else that you had maybe had a relationship with at South Carolina? How'd those guys do overall?
Yeah, Wilden's battled. I don't know if you guys remember Thornwell, Sindarius, his sophomore year. He was battling some knee issues, tendonitis issues, where we had to shut him down after the season. Wilden's battled that. He played through it, but as soon as the season ended, we shut him down, and he still hasn't. We started summer school yesterday, and he still hasn't played since we shut him down. So, but he's getting healthy, and he's going to be fine. Had a solid year for us. Nothing spectacular, but created the work ethic that I love, I believe in. Taquan Woodley came up here, unfortunately made some mistakes off the court, and I had to send him home. He's presently, I'm still helping him, just like I did with Rick Infelder. He's getting ready to enroll in a junior college here sometime in June, and try to reorganize himself. And then Brandon Martin, my son, came up here, started majority of the year. Him and Wilden's created a daily mindset and approach that I wanted, and they did things the right way in the classroom, in the community, and then obviously in the weight room and the court. Didn't play well early, but played a lot better late. So it was a interesting first year, and then Matt Cross, who became our best player, and then he got hurt at the end of the year. Who's somebody I recruited really hard at South Carolina. I didn't get him out of high school, and then I got him over here. So that was kind of the quartet that had some kind of ties to South Carolina.
How do you feel you were accepted by the folks at UMass and by the team? And did you coach the same way there this past year as you did at South Carolina? By that I mean, you know what I mean. Were you very noticeable on the sidelines? Were you kind of loud? Did you stomp your feet and raise your voice? That kind of stuff.
So I coach like a football coach. That's what you're trying to say. It's who I am, Phil. I mean, it's who I am. I mean, I'm better now than I was. At my first year at South Carolina, I was better at South Carolina than I was probably at K-State, and I was better at K-State than I was in my high school days. It comes with age. When I was young and stupid, and I probably, if I were to look back at my coaching film when I was 30 years old, I'd be like, what was I doing? That's embarrassing. And to this day, I'm sure that there's moments where I'm sure there are moments when I get home and I'm like, come on, Frank, you're better than that. And that comes with age. It's the way it works. But I'm my same fiery self, and I'm going to stomp and yell, and it's who I am. But no, it was great. I mean, there's one game where one Yahoo started yelling something at me from the stands. In a home game, they went and removed him, and they gave us standing ovation when they removed him. So I guess things are okay.
Did you have anybody at the Colonial Life Arena behind you that you would have liked to have seen removed a time or two?
Oh man! Actually, when I first started there was no one back there other than my family, so I don't want to remove that. As time went on, we packed that joint, and it's one of the things we talked about. I take a lot of pride in the fact that we sold that building up 6 times, and after it had only been sold out once in its history, and. But that wasn't a lie. When I first started there, those seats right behind me, there's no one there, and I knew that first year that's something needed to change.
Yeah.
Coach Phil phrased that question perfectly. He said directly behind you, so you couldn't have signaled him out from media row and got him tossed.
Phil never watched the game. He sat there and tried to read my lips the whole game. That's what he was doing.
UMass head men's basketball coach Frank Martin with us here tonight on Sports Talk. And, Coach, you guys announced today the hiring of Brett Nelson, who was just an outstanding player at the University of Florida. He's now coming on your staff as an assistant coach. In your mind, how difficult is it for a great college player to translate what he was able to do physically and teach it to a current crop of players?
Yeah, and with Brett, that gives me 4 guys on my staff that all played for me during their stage in life, during a certain stage of their life. So, for this rough, gruff guy that nobody likes, my former players obviously really enjoy being around me because I got 4 of them on my staff, including Brian Steele, who's a South Carolina grad. But Brett played AAU basketball for me back in the day. And he and I and, his family, we've had a relationship since then. And he went on and had a McDonald's All-American career in high school, had a tremendous career in Florida, teamed up with Udonis Haslam and Brent Wright, 2 guys that played for me in high school who were his AAU teammates, to play for the national championship in 2000. And then he embarked on chasing a professional career. And when that wasn't going the right way, he decided to get into coaching. And when we at South Carolina, when we played Marquette in the NCAA tournament, he was the associate head coach on that staff that basically put together the team that was the one we played against. And Brett has an incredible enthusiasm for competition. He's just a great on the court teacher. He's been a head coach at Holy Cross for the last 5 years, I believe, and just he's earned his stripes as a coach. Some guys finish their career and immediately end up in one of the big name schools. Brett earned his way through the business. Stetson, Marshall, Drake, Marquette. He's earned his way through the business, and he's going to be a great addition to our staff, along with Alan Edwards, who played at Kentucky, who played for me in high school, that won 2 national championships, one for Rick Pitino, one for Tubby, and then Brian Steele and Doug Edwards, 2 guys who were with me at South Carolina. So I'm excited. I've got a fun staff and guys that I know real well and know me really well. So it's I don't have to look over my shoulder to make sure that as we're building, things are being done the right way.
You've always spoken very fondly about high school basketball, and I saw an interview you gave a week or so ago where you said, I still believe in high school recruiting. In our current state with the transfer portal, can UMass basketball under Frank Martin survive on just high school recruiting?
Yeah, I think you have to, everyone's different. I think as a coach, you have to go get guys that fit you. If you just go get transfers and they don't fit you, it's going to be a bad deal. And if you just go get high school kids and you don't have the patience to deal with high school guys, it's not going to be a good deal. It's I think we went out and got 2 transfers, one from South Carolina, Daniel Sanford, who we signed in my time down there. I'm a big Daniel Sanford fan. I think he fits me. And that was a big reason he ended up coming here. Is his family was like, Daniel needs to be around Frank because he needs Frank in his life. And then we took another transfer in Josh Cohen, who was a Northeast Conference Player of the Year. So we took a couple pretty good transfers, but I also took high school guys. And I still believe in relationships. I got into coaching not to win games. I got into coaching for the relationships. To watch young people grow. I still believe in that. And, the day that doesn't work anymore, then it's probably time for me to go down and spend some time with Phil on the radio and keep people busy.
Hey, man, we got room for you. We are the home of ex-coaches, so you ever reach that point, you come on down here and join us. We'll be happy to fill one of your nights. Talking to Frank Martin, who, by the way, he would not admit this. I'll throw it out there. There was this tweet from College Basketball Report of a list of the top 25 head coaches in men's college basketball since 2000. This is according to ChatGPT, which I had to look up. It's an AI thing, whatever that is. I don't know. Maybe Chris can explain it. But anyway, you're ranked number 23 among all head coaches in men's college basketball since 2000. You're number 23. This is during your time at South Carolina, ahead of Scott Drew and Steve Alford, behind Kelvin Sampson and Bruce Pearl and Ben Howland and your buddy Bob Huggins. So anyway, that's whether it's artificial or not, it's nice that somebody's recognized you for what you have accomplished, and we congratulate you on that. My question is now, looking ahead, next 10 years or so with everything that's going on in college athletics in general and now college basketball in particular with the acquisition of talent and the retaining of talent? Where do you see that going? How's it going to work?
That's the interesting part of this moment that we're in. And if you were to rank the top 25 guys in the country that got that figured out, I don't know what names would go up there. It's the hardest part right now, and is you got here's something no one wants to talk about. Out of all Division I football, Division I men's basketball from last year, 43% of those scholarship people that entered the portal got left out. That is sad.
Mm-hmm.
And they're entering the portal because they're chasing a dollar figure, because they think that it's better somewhere else, because someone is telling them there's a better situation for you. And 43% of these young people are getting left out. They're leaving a $100,000 scholarship on the table for whatever reasons. And I think that is sad. And no one talks about that. But that's the moment that we're in, is when this NIL was introduced, which I've been pushing for since 2010 when I was at K-State, because it just never made sense to me. But we've unleashed it with no guardrails, with no protection. This what NIL is now, and I had a job when I was 12 years old, so I don't ever want to hear anything about young people have to wait their time. No, I had a job. I had to work to help my mother pay bills. So I'm all into people making money. I got no problem with that. But the NIL is a one-way contract right now. There's no protection for the universities. None. Zero. And that's not right, because it's a partnership between the athlete and the university. Before NIL, you can argue it was the other way.
Mm-hmm.
There was full protection for the university. So somehow, some way, this has to be figured out where both are protected. But when you introduce the NIL along with immediate transfers and the introduction of agents where they're allowed, you're asking for all kinds of problems. And I don't say problems in a negative way. I just mean problems because they're brand new. No one knows how to manage it. And that's the complicated thing. But the sad part is those 43%. Right now in men's basketball, there's 45% of the people that entered the portal don't have where to go. 45%. That's sad. That's a lot of people that are leaving a lot of guaranteed dollars on the table and opportunities at a university that adds value to the rest of their life. And that's unfortunate.
Would you sign up for a system for college basketball, college sports in general? Would you sign up for a pro-style, NBA-style system for not necessarily acquiring the talent right now, but for paying the talent, just a flat-out, what it is, pay for play, which I happen to believe you can call it NIL or you can call it cotton candy. It's pay for play because players are getting paid and they're being induced to come to certain places because of the money. It's being used in recruiting. I think you know that. Would you be in favor of just a straight-out pro-style compensation system?
I've never been a fan of coaching professionals. That's why I've always stayed in the amateur side, for lack of better words. My concern wouldn't be for whether I would want to do it or not. I've never been in that environment, so I don't know what it would be like. My concern is that the day we go to that, since men's basketball and football basically pays the bills for everybody, college sports as we know it are done. Title IX out the window. And now my wife, who was a track star up here at UMass and very successful in life, she was further ahead in life than I was when we met at Northeastern. And she would never have had the opportunity to go to college because she couldn't afford college. But because she was good at track, she was able to benefit in life because of a track scholarship. And and that's going to go out the window. And that's because the day that players unionize, Title IX's out. You can't lump men's basketball and football into Title IX if they're unions and they're being viewed as professionals. And that's why the NBA, there is no Title IX. That's why the NFL, there is no Title IX. And the day that happens, all these sports we know that are funded by men's basketball and football are out the window, and non-scholarships, and there's going to be a lot of people that miss out on the opportunity to go to college.
Couple more minutes with Frank Martin.
That's what scares me.
Yeah.
That's what scares me. It's not me whether I can do it or not. If I choose to try it, I'll figure it out, and if I don't like it, I'll get out. I'm old enough where I'm closer to the finish line than at the beginning. But I fear for young people that won't be able to benefit in life because, like my wife, if she was in this moment and football and basketball unionize and professionalize.
Coach, I don't know if it was by design or I don't remember. I don't think you guys had an opportunity when you coached at South Carolina to go back and face Kansas State. Would you be open to an opportunity to face the Gamecocks now as head coach at UMass, say on a home and home at some point in time while you're in Amherst?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I didn't leave there. I've had some people say, well, Frank, you didn't say the right things on the way out. What are you supposed to say when you get fired? But I love my time there. That's a special place to me and my family. My kids grew up there. We've got dear friends there. My wife and daughter and son and me, we've flown back in there numerous times to go see friends. That place means a lot to us and will always mean a lot to us. To me, professionally, that school treated me great. The community was incredible. Just think about what I said. We sold that building out 6 times. It had been sold out once in its history. So there was a lot of good there. And so I've got no sour grapes. School paid me a boatload of money. My experience, my personal experience on the court was a lot more success than failure. And we were able to build a very solid program to compete at a high level and finish in the upper echelon of the SEC on a regular basis. So I would hope that as we move forward, people in Columbia and in the state realize how important that place is to me. But right now, I'm a UMass guy. And, can we play South Carolina? I don't know, I guess. But it's not – I don't know if it's something that I would look forward to going in there as the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's who knows? It's the opportunity arises to compete. It's something that I wouldn't run away from, but I don't know if I'd run around trying to chase it eiteither. I don't know if that makes sense.
You're undefeated in the state of South Carolina since you went to UMass. Okay,
It's true.
You're 3-0 in the Palmetto State since you went there. So, listen, we want to thank you for your time. It's always great talking to you. You always bring it. You're always honest. We really appreciate that. I think the sports fans, the listeners, appreciate that. And have a great summer. Look forward to watching your progress, because it took you a couple of years to get it going with the Gamecocks, and sounds like you'll get it going pretty quickly up there with the Minutemen. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Coach.
Looking forward to it, Phil. Hey, guys, and here, like I told you through the text message, Phil, I don't have to be on the phone for 4 minutes. You and I can stay on the phone for a while now. It doesn't, there's no rush to get off the phone.
There's nobody standing over your head saying you got to cut it. You got to cut it. Thank you very much.
Anytime you guys need me, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Call away.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Frank Martin, head coach at UMass, former head coach at South Carolina and Kansas State, and assistant coach at several spots. Always enjoyed talking to him. And, good times, bad times at South Carolina. It was never a dull time with Frank Martin. I never missed.
That's true.
I never missed an Eddie Fogler press conference. Never missed a Frank Martin press conference that I could get to, because you just never knew what was going to be coming out of the mouth. And it was always interesting to listen to him take a subject and just run with it sometimes. He does have his opinions about things. He's not afraid to share it. Okay, we'll come back from the break. We'll take more phone calls, 888-898-2525. We'll hear a few minutes from Dabo Sweeney. Pretty soon, Dabo Sweeney, Shane Beamer, Tim Beck, and others will be dominating the airwaves in our state as we get into football season. We're about, 95 days away or so from that opener. Can't wait for that
ballpark.
Can't wait for that 2:15 kickoff against Charleston Southern at Death Valley. Be right back.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy with a low temp of 64 overnight. Tomorrow and Friday feature mostly cloudy skies and a high temp in the low 80s. Saturday, rain increased to 40%. The high temp week in the low 80s range. Skies look nice for Monday, especially Tuesday of next week. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Hey, it's Jay with the Melting Pot. One of the cool things about working at the Melting Pot is we don't have to push our servers to sell dessert. We don't even have to push them to suggest dessert. You all know it's coming, a big bowl of melted chocolate with all the dippers that you could dream of. How about a flaming turtle, creamy flavor of milk chocolate is melted with caramel flambéed and topped with candied pecans. Or a bananas Foster, white chocolate fondue melted with bananas and dulce de leche, then flambéed. The Melting Pot, 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting the governors of Virginia, West Virginia, and South Carolina are joining the growing list of Republican-led states sending soldiers or other state law enforcement officers to the U.S. border with Mexico. Virginia's Glenn Youngkin announced Wednesday he's deploying 100 Virginia National Guard soldiers and 21 support personnel at the request of Texas Governor Greg Abbott. South Carolina's Henry McMaster and West Virginia's Jim Justice made similar announcements Wednesday. Utah Republican Chris Stewart is resigning from his seat in the narrowly divided U.S. House of Representatives. He said in a statement on Wednesday that he had decided to retire due to his wife's health. His resignation gives Utah Governor Spencer Cox 7 days to schedule a special election to fill his vacancy under state law. More details available at srnnews.com.
Father's Day in the Midlands. Time to celebrate Dad. And did you know it's actually a fact of life? Dads love Shooter's Choice, and dads love firearms for Father's Day. I've talked to dads. In fact, myself, dads do love Shooter's Choice. There's great deals on shotguns, rifles, and handguns. Great gifts like ammo, scopes, and accessories to put a smile on Dad's face. After what? How about a Shooter's Choice gift card or a day at the range for you and Dad to bond together? Let the friendly and experienced experts at Shooter's Choice help out. Actually, hunters, they actually shoot. They're great working there. This is the best time to think about a gift for Dad. Father's Day. Hey, online, you can browse SportsTalkSC.com or come on down to Shooter's Choice, Sunset Boulevard in West Virginia. Make your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Pardon me, ma'am. Are you interested in lowering your energy usage and saving money? Did you know in energy up to $750?
That's a lot of money.
Yes, it is. And it comes in handy if your system fails and you need a replacement.
Any restrictions?
For starters, your new equipment must be Energy Star qualified.
That's a good thing.
Go to DominionEnergySC.com and click Save Energy.
DominionEnergySC.com it is. Thanks for the tip.
Certain restrictions apply.
Hey, honey, do you remember Dad's meds this morning?
You know, I'm not sure.
He isn't either. Keeping up with his meds over.
You know, True Pharmacy medication showed me a sample, and it even separates them by date and time of day.
Something like that would be really helpful for Dad and for me.
Even better, it's just a customer. True Pharmacy, 1628 Charleston Highway and 3217 Devine Street, or TrueRxSC.com.
Hi, this is going. Is a unique radio station. We don't have a bunch of huge corporate sponsors, and we're not a part of the local 5 or 6 corporate radio station. We're a locally owned and locally operated station. In fact, we're a family. Community first. We're all about local. And if you're a small business owner, well, it'd be my honor to sit down with you about growing your business with the help of the point. If you've never considered radio advertising, well, it works, especially radio. Our listeners trust us, and they support our advertising. Just how affordable running some ads on the point can be. So let me put something together. A customized package that needs your budget. I'm not quoting Kev. Call me 563-8558 or email me at kev@makethepointradio.com. That's 563-8558 or my email address, kev@makethepointradio.com. Let's sit down. Let's talk about partnering up. Let's talk about seeing if we can grow together.
Thanks again to Frank Martin for being with us here on Sports Talk. If you missed it, if you missed anything from the show tonight, or anytime you miss anything from a night of Sports Talk, everything is made available for you in podcast form. We take the different elements of the show, we take the entire show, and we put them in various podcasts. Easiest way to get to it is to go to our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on the menu where it says podcasts, click on that. Takes you right to it. You can get everything that you missed on a particular night or missed a couple of days ago or a week ago. Great way to catch up on Sports Talk anytime you miss anything live on the show. Now, we got recruiting coming up. We got more phone calls coming up. Let me update a couple of stories of importance from today that we haven't touched on. So, we've got game times announced today, SEC, ACC, Sun Belt, other leagues. South Carolina, North Carolina in Charlotte, 7:30 kickoff. That'll be on ABC that night. And then the Gamecocks home opener against Furman the next week will be at 7:30. That'll be on ESPN+. And Clemson at Duke will have an 8 o'clock kickoff on ESPN. Charleston Southern at Clemson will kick off at 2:15. On that day, Pat has determined why that's the case. He's done some sleuth work here. He thinks he's figured it out.
Yeah, and I tell you, they did not make it easy for him either. I cannot find a single article actually outlining why there is a 2:15 kickoff. Never heard of such a thing. But if you look closely at the schedule and you notice what network is carrying which game, the ACC network is going to be carrying 4 full games, at least for this weekend, for that week 2. Mm-hmm. I don't know for sure if that means the entire season, but it sure is alluding to that. Starting at 11 a.m. So any Wake Forest or Vanderbilt fans out there, good luck getting up that morning. And for Vanderbilt fans, that'll be 10 a.m. Wake Forest will be hosting Vanderbilt in Winston-Salem, 11 a.m. kickoff on ACC Network, followed by Clemson and Charleston Southern at 2:15. Then there is North Carolina and App State at 5:15. Then Florida State and see the logo, I'm guessing that's Southern Miss, it looks like, at 8:30 p.m. that game. That's just on the main network. Then they also have multiple games, 3 games on the ACC Extra Network. So that's 7 games total between the 2 networks for the ACC.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier about when they sold their soul to television. There's not an athletic director worth his paycheck who, if he had his say, would allow his team to play an 11 o'clock kickoff or 10 o'clock in the central time zone for his fans back there. It just makes no sense. Just like Clemson's going to kick off at 8 o'clock against FAU. You know, why would Clemson and FAU be a game during prime time at 8 o'clock, except it'll be on the ACC network, and they have to have an 8 o'clock game. So they make no sense except for the standpoint that television has to have them at particular times, and you're stuck. You have to go where they plug you in. And then there's Coastal Carolina. Their schedule announced game kickoff times for the Shots at UCLA, Chris. 10:30 on ESPN, though, man. ESPN.
How about that?
10:30 at UCLA. I am so jealous. I am absolutely overcome with jealousy that you're going to be able to walk the hallowed grounds of the Rose Bowl. That just stinks.
Well, I am obviously looking so forward to that. I will call you, though, if you want to be jealous. I will call you when we land. I may be riding back by Darlington about the time the Southern 500 gets rolling, so I may roll right into the parking lot. How much? I mean, is that the Grayson McAuliffe? I realize it's such a small deal, but UCLA Coastal, you wouldn't think that's a primetime ESPN game over Labor Day weekend, but I mean, is that the Grayson McCall versus UCLA effect? I don't know.
It has to be, but what a feather in the cap of Coastal Carolina. My goodness.
Oh, no doubt.
Then they play the Gamecocks the next week at 7 o'clock. On ESPN+, that'd be the Jacksonville State.
Not those Gamecocks. Yes.
The Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Then they play Duquesne at, Duquesne. I just wanted to say Duquesne. 7 o'clock, ESPN+. That's your home opener, Duquesne. Georgia State, Thursday night. Love Thursday night games at the beach. We'll be there. September 21st, Thursday night, 7:30 on ESPN, another ESPNer. And then October 10th at Appalachian State on ESPN2 at 7:30. So Those are some of the game times. Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. You need to play on a Tuesday? Go right ahead. Holy cow. All right, let's go to Delvin in Fountain Inn. Recruiting coming up. Oh, and some Dabo Sweeney right after Delvin. Delvin, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Phil?
Tremendous.
Yeah, you were talking about Coach Ben again. The ACC Network has been doing that for the past few years now, starting games at 11 o'clock, 2:15. Coach played at 5 last year when they had the little 4 games on in one
They've
day.
They've had 2:15 kickoffs before.
Yeah, 2 o'clock. Yeah, you look back at this past schedules on the ACC Network since it don't got started. They don't play 4 games in one day.
I didn't pay attention to those games because they weren't worth paying attention to. Generally speaking, if you're on the ACC network, you're to be ignored.
Yeah, but
with an occasional, game worth watching, but not many.
Have they ever had an 11 a.m. kickoff though, Delvin? I don't remember that from last year.
Yeah. You look at the schedule. They had 11 game kickoff before.
Okay.
You look back at the past.
We'll take your word for it.
All right. Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Dabo Sweeney on the Prowl and Growl tour, the last stop. They were in Greenville last night. Prior to, he met with some members of the media up there, and they talked about his trip to South Africa, and they talked about him not being at the ACC spring meetings, but he kept in touch with everything. He said no big deal. He meets with ACC coaches on Zoom calls practically every month, so he's kept in touch with everything that's going on. Didn't miss anything. Did not ignore his duties or anything like that. But he was with a bunch of Clemson people on this trip to South Africa, and I guess went on a safari and all that kind of stuff. He saw lions and tigers, but no bears. I'm told there are no bears in South Africa. Probably some elephants and other things. And then they talked some football, and, of course, you got a new offensive coordinator at Clemson in Garrett Riley, and we pick up the conversation with a question to him about having a new OC to break in on the staff.
Is your offseason a little different with Coach Riley in? He's not from inside the system. Are you going to change the way you structure your off time leading up to the season?
No. We got our organizational chart that we believe in, and not doing anything any different at all. Just got obviously a new guy that's running the offense, but nothing. Calendar-wise or how we go about our business.
Is this you had some changes this year, obviously, and you had a great spring. Is this more like this season more kind of jumping off point for you guys again in your program?
I'm not sure.
Back when you brought Chad and them in, that was sort of a new start, and this is sort of a new start.
I think every year's a new start.
Yeah.
Every year's a new start. Whether you got one change, 10 changes, no changes, it's a new start. Doesn't matter what you did last year. None of that stuff matters. You got new recruits that have come in. Those dynamics are always changing. That's why you have to have some order and structure and routine, things that you can really hang your hat on, year in and year out, foundationally, which we have, and that's why we've been so successful. But you start over every year, regardless. But probably for media and fans, it's probably something new to talk about, I guess. But for me, it's just a starting over period every single year.
What's it like to bring a new guy in and see him click, see him bringing Garrett Riley in and see the players rally around him, how excited they are? Cade just seems so excited about what's ahead of him, and I feel like that ripples through.
Yeah, Cade was excited to come here before Garrett. So, the guys choose Clemson because this is the program they want to be a part of, and at the end of the day, it comes down to what you do on Saturday. If you win, everybody's happy. If you don't, none of the rest of it matters. So, it's as we said, we start over. I think we've had a really good spring. The leadership of your team is different every year. The chemistry of your team has to be kind of redone every year. You have to reinstall the program every year, just like an offense, a defense. Our guys started back today as far as mandatory. Most of them were there last week, but they got back going today mandatory-wise. And, I think there's a genuine enthusiasm amongst everyone on the roster just because they have an opportunity to be at Clemson. And they all chose to come here. and it's exciting. We had a really good recruiting class last year that's almost intact. We got a few that'll come here in another couple of weeks. They'll get on campus, and so coming off an ACC championship and really, really close to getting back to the playoff. I think the guys are eager. We got a lot of guys back and a lot of good veteran guys that could have left that came back because they really want to make a run at this thing. So you feel that with all the guys.
Okay, Dabo Swinney, are we short selling the Tigers? Some people short selling the Tigers going into this 23 season because of concerns on the offensive side, new coordinator, unproven quarterback, unproven left tackle, a little bit of other concern about some depth on the offensive line, receivers that don't, at least coming off last year, that don't scare anybody anymore, a couple of good running backs, good tight ends. What do you think, Chris? Are people going to be foolish selling this Clemson offense short with Garrett Riley now in charge?
I don't know. Foolish would be a correct term, and I would actually elevate their running back room to probably elite. I mean, I think Will Shipley's as good a running back as anybody in the country, and I think last year they actually underutilized Phil Maffa. Mm-hmm. So I think their running back room is very solid. But I think all the other points you brought up about their offense are fair criticisms, or at least not even criticisms, fair questions to ask as we sit here on May 31st. And probably won't get very good answers through the first couple of ball games of the season for them. Even with their ACC opener at Duke. I mean, is that a game that even with Clemson's offense from last year would have scared Tiger fans? I don't know. So I'm not sure how long it would take before we're able to answer that question. So I will say maybe a more interesting question will be, where is Clemson with regards to other teams in their own league now? Is Florida State really back? That's a great question. Is Miami even getting close to being back? How good is North Carolina's defense going to be? I mean, there are questions all over the Atlantic Coast Conference. Clemson's not immune to those, but I think the points you brought up are fair.
Yeah. You also have to throw in special teams. How's the place kicking going to be? New place kicker. And the punting was not extraordinary last year. That's something to be desired. So they got to improve in that area. The defense will be stout. I don't think there's any question that they are going to be one of the best defensive teams in the country with the players they have coming back. So look for them to be strong there. And we'll give you the recruiting. A lot of stuff coming out of Clemson today. That's coming up.
If you're looking to stay hydrated this summer, turn toward a southern favorite, sweet South Carolina watermelons. One slice is equivalent to a glass of water and is just as effective as sports drinks for hydration. If you don't believe us, you can ask the Palmetto State's top football teams. The SC Watermelon Association will be serving up slices after summer practice to keep our teams fueled and hydrated. Visit scwatermelon.org for all the details and look for ripe South Carolina watermelons in your hometown.
George Bryant for Tsunami Bar Sports. Our inventor, David Abernathy, has always said Tsunami Bar technology allows us to take the training to the grass. Now I know through my sport of golf that natural agility can be converted to athletic ability. And why is this, Tsunami Robbie?
Transferring the training to the grass. This may be the most undervalued characteristic of the Tsunami flexible bar technology. The Tsunami bar action loads and unloads at the concentric and eccentric transition points. This is what we call reversal forces. And the Tsunami bar is the only bar and training device that I know of that can train these reversal forces adequately at speed.
Hey, this is Phil Kornbluth. The Tsunami Bar is a terrific training device, whether you're working on your fitness or your golf game. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and you won't feel beat up afterwards. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com and get 5% off any order using promo code BBB5. Don't wait, order today.
Hi, folks. This is Mike Morgan. I want to tell you about an exciting new product from my friends at Vision Air Solutions. Staying healthy in my line of work is so critical, and probably in yours as well. A large factor in all of that is making sure we're breathing in healthy and safe air every day. That's where Vision Air Solutions comes in. They make sure your home has air purification for all the air pollution you can't see. Viruses, mold, bacteria, stale odors, cooking smells, and volatile organic compounds. They make sure your home is full of clean air and also offer HVAC duct cleaning and sanitation as well. Make sure you and your family are breathing clean air today by giving Vision Air Solutions a call today. 803-220-1811. That's 803-220-1811. Tell them Mike sent you.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
Well, do we know if the Seawells family's back from vacation yet? Hopefully. They're open for the daily luncheon buffet tomorrow, and Pat's got a smile on his face. It must be a big one. It's our recruiting report brought to you by Seawells.
Well, I'm smiling for excitement for the rest of the week and a little bit of disappointing myself for not going today. But tomorrow at Seawells, they will have carved applewood smoked ham, southern fried chicken, and then fried flounder. They will cap off the week southern fried chicken, roast beef Friday, carved roasted sirloin of beef, and then pulled pork. Sounds like a good rest of the week.
Yeah, that flounder pulled right out of the Congaree River, Chris. It's fresh and it's
yummy.
Nothing like good old flounder
like the Congaree River.
Make sure you get to Seawells for the daily luncheon buffet. I promise you their flounder did not come from the Congaree or the Watery or the Broad. They are open with their buffet from 11 till 2, Monday through Friday. And, of course, we encourage you. It's now summertime. You got special events indoors, outdoors. Give Seawells a call. Let them handle your big event, your special event. And they'll treat it like it's their own family. You'll be part of their family. Their phone number is 803-771-7385. Online at SeawellsCateringSC.com. All right, to the recruiting report we go tonight. Dabo Swinney hosting his first camp of the summer. The Tigers handed out, they wait. They don't like to hand out offers to the next class until that June, going into the junior year of that class. When I say the next class, not the 24 class, the 25 class. They've offered their 24s, now officially offering guys in the 25 class, including the quarterback they apparently like in the 25 class, George McIntyre, out of Brentwood, Tennessee, heavily recruited. He is the grandson of the former Vanderbilt head coach of the same name, who once coached at Clemson. So he has got ties to the Tigers program. They offered defensive end Jacaleb Falk, Highland Home, Alabama. Running back Gideon Davidson, Forest, Virginia. Offensive guard Justin Hossenheidel, 6'5", 300, Rabun Gap, Georgia. David Sanders of Charlotte, offensive tackle. Some list him the number one player in the class. That's it. Those are the offers they handed out. Now, another quarterback, 2025, Sawyer Anderson of Dallas, plans to be at Clemson tomorrow to throw at the Dabo Swinney camp. And when it comes to 25 quarterbacks, expecting them to offer Ryan Montgomery up in Ohio, I would think, based on their involvement with him. USC target, wide receiver Amari Jefferson of Chattanooga is going to name his top 5 on June the 5th. USC target, inside offensive lineman Liam Andrews of Brookline, Massachusetts, will take an official visit to Penn State this weekend. He's got Wisconsin June 9th and Florida June 16th. USC target 2025 quarterback Deuce Knight will visit Tennessee this weekend. Now to basketball. Clemson assistant Sean Dixon has been on 6'9" Dallas Thomas of Little Rock, Arkansas since March. He's kept up the interest into AAU season. The two are getting stronger in their recruiting relationship, and Thomas tells us he'll take an official to Clemson on June 14th. Saying it's still early in the process. He's building a relationship with the coaches, And with the head coach, Coach Dixon, and the head coach, they tell him they think he would thrive in the ACC. 16-7 for him last season. They like his versatility. He's a 6'9" guy who can play on the perimeter, who can't, but can also score in the paint. He's named the top 5 of Clemson, LSU, Memphis, Arkansas, and Missouri. USC and Clemson target 6'4" Austin Swartz, offered by UConn. And in baseball, the transfer portal, John, for baseball is alive and well. The Gamecocks have reached in and pulled out offensive outfielder Austin Brinling. He has committed to the Gamecocks. He started his career at Florida. He is from North Florida. He started his career at the University of Florida, then transferred to Daytona State. This season, he hit .386, 20 stolen bases, 3 home runs, 31 RBIs, and he had 2 hits in that win by the Ospreys over the Gamecocks in Columbia on May the 9th. That's probably where they got a good look at him and said, when this guy hits the portal, we'll know all about him. Okay, there you go with recruiting on this Wednesday night. Be sure to check it out regularly on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting.
That's why mid-majors don't want to play Power 5 teams, Phil. That's exactly why.
Yeah. You get a look at their good players.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of other notes. NASCAR announced today the championship weekend will return to Phoenix next year, November 3 through 5. Furman men's and women's athletic programs recorded third-place finishes in the Southern Conference's Commissioner Cup and German Cup. The Commissioner Cup is awarded annually by the SoCon to the top men's program, and the German Cup goes to the SoCon's top women's program. So Furman finished third in both categories. Vanderbilt announced today a major, in all caps, facility upgrade to Hawkins Field, the baseball facility there at Vanderbilt, including a second deck grandstand, premium seating additions, a home run deck atop the left field wall, and a 360-degree stadium experience, all part of a $3.2 billion university Dare to Grow campaign. Speaking of big money, Pat McAfee's new deal with ESPN will be worth about $17 million annually, according to the New York Post's Andrew Marchand, which is a reduction for him. He was making $120 million total in a 4-year deal with FanDuel. He signed on with ESPN for $85 million over 5 years. Who takes a pay cut these days? And Gators AD, Florida AD, Scott Strickland, this morning at the SEC meetings on the 8 versus 9, said, quote, "We all have non-conference contracts for the fall of 24, which makes me, the AD, think that 9 might not be feasible for the first year. It would be challenging to do at this point." The quote from Matt Baker of the Tampa Bay Times. And Portugal product Josiah Jordan James announced today he will return to Tennessee for another season. Jeff May has been named the president of the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame. He was a legend at Lander in Greenwood as athlete, coach, dean, and vice president. So he's done a little bit of everything. Missed this yesterday, but we should mention Valerie Cagle from Clemson named the USA Softball National Player of the Year. That's pretty strong.
And understandably so. I mean, she was terrific for them. And I tell you, after watching them this past weekend against Oklahoma, even though they got swept into the Super Regionals, Phil, they're not far off. I mean, that program has burst on the scene in a short period of time, and she's a big reason why.
Yeah. You're going to watch the Women's College World Series?
I watched some of it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you enjoy. Tomorrow, we have press conferences at Coastal, at USC, and at Clemson for the teams. And we'll have that covered for you on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and here on the program. Look forward to that. Chris, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Patrick, thank you. Thanks to Frank Martin for joining us tonight, and thanks to all of you. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Local in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Columbia's local talk radio experience. 107 The Point. Make thepointradio.com. The Point.